Hi, and welcome to a Small Medium at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Heisen, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. Let me tell you about our special guest today, Sandra Martin. Sandra Martin's career as a literary agent and executive producer for television has been devoted to bringing inspiring, boundary breaking books and television documentaries in the fields of spirituality, self help, and consciousness to the mainstream public. In 1986, Sandra Martin created Paraview Incorporated. Paraview holds a unique position in the media industry for being among the first to successfully develop literary properties for the worldwide audience of culture creatives, a 50 million plus audience interested in consciousness, deep spirituality, healing, and the paranormal. As a literary agent, Sandra had many books on the New York Times bestseller list, such as medium James Van Prague's Talking to Heaven, parapsychologist Dean Radin's The Conscious Universe, singer-songwriter Jules' A Night Without Armor, and Jim Marrs' Ruled by Secrecy, among many others. During the 90s, Sandra Martin was one of the first agents to develop and launch her own imprint, Paraview Books. In 2000, Miss Martin negotiated a deal with Simon and Schuster to create a new imprint, Paraview Pocketbooks, a division of Simon and Schuster Publishing. Sandra also created and executive produced a 3-hour documentary series for the Discovery Channel titled The Power of Dreams, and for PBS, a 3-hour documentary series, Intuition, for the PBS Pledge Fund Drive. As executive producer for Is It Really Me?, she was awarded a Cine Golden Eagle Award. In 2002, she accepted the position of Senior Vice President of Content for Wisdom Television. At Wisdom, she was responsible for developing and producing programming for the new linear cable channel. At Sirius Radio in New York City, a critical and profound discussion on the spiritual aspects of life after the World Trade Center attack was filmed. It was titled 9/11/02, From the Ground Up, hosted by Carolyn Miss and Jim Garrison. Sandra has served on the boards of astronaut Edgar Mitchell's Friends for the Institute of Noetic Sciences in New York City, the Rhine Research Center in Durham, North Carolina, Harvard University Center for Psychology and Social Change, and Nurture Art of New York City. As a consultant, Sandra Martin worked with Time Life Books on their best-selling series, Mysteries of the Unknown, Berkeley Bettles National Foundation for Alternative and Integrative Medicine, and the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Sandra moved back to her family home in Bracey, Virginia in 2004, and she started the Diary Barn events in 2005, bringing speakers to her hometown. In 2016, she published her own book, Snapshots, Memories and Recipes, heart-wrenching, magical, funny, romantic stories of her life. Let's welcome Sandra here today. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, it's so nice to be here and to see your face again. I
It's
miss you.
it's really great to see you. I think we met more than 20 years ago.
Yes, we did in New
And
York City.
yes, I got to see your fancy office. It was lovely. Your beautiful desk up there. And
Yeah,
that was our first meet. And then we met some years later in your area and came to your house for lunch, my husband and I.
that's right.
I don't
God,
I don't remember how long ago that was, but now here we are again.
here we are.
And it's so many years later, but it still feels like I just saw you yesterday. So that's a wonderful feeling.
I know. Don't you love that? I love that too. I feel the same way.
It's really good feeling connection. So I'm
Yeah.
going to start like I don't know anything about you, which is a lot of things I actually don't know about, which is your childhood. I always like to find out what my guest's childhood and family life was like, and if any of it involves spirituality or the paranormal. And this is a two-part question asking how your family was, but then at the same time, as a child, did you have any paranormal experiences? And if you did, if you could share some of those with us. So it's a two-part question.
Well, I grew up in the country on a farm, a tobacco farm, a dairy farm, every kind of stuff we grew. And we got up really early and we worked in the fields. I mean, literally worked in the fields. Excuse me. I was the oldest of four, and my mom, my mom died a few years ago, but one of the things, and I took care of her for 10 years, but one of the things she kept saying to me, I'm so sorry I treated you like Cinderella. And finally I said, what do you mean, Mom? She said, I just expected you to do everything. Damn, my phone is ringing. You want to
Oh,
stop for a second?
okay.
Stop. So even though I grew up on this farm in this really old house, 1860, 1858 actually, but uh,
Nice.
it was, I just found this out not too long ago that my grandmother's family, the Rose family, were some of the first settlers in Jamestown.
Wow.
And the Martins family originally, they were all from around England, around that area. She, be quiet. And I kept thinking, God, I should have turned that off. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We'll hold for a second. I'm not even going to
Okay.
pause.
All right.
Okay.
So I wanted, we all did our DNA thing, and I really wanted something exotic because I always felt so plain in my background. I was just like a basic American, just came here in the beginning and farmed forever. And but actually, I had absolutely nothing except English by ancestors. It was so disappointing. But, there you go. So we've
Don't
been
feel
here
bad.
on this land that long, on this big farm. And my dad died in 2001, and my mom just died 3 years ago. But I am actually sitting in this house where I grew up in my bedroom, but it's an office now. But I just think it's amazing how we have endured all of this long time. And so anyway, I have a really good family. They're all super nice people, and they're all really smart, it seems. There's a couple that are not so great, but that's the way that goes. And so I grew up inside and outside person, but I was really an inside person. I did not want to go outdoors unless somebody made me.
Hmm.
And of course, I had to work, so I was out there. I would tell mom that I was not meant to be in the country. I was supposed to be where sidewalks were. And she would say, who have you been talking to? And I would say, nobody. I just know that. And one of the things that happened when I was really young was that I kept seeing this little girl running down the hall. We have a long hallway goes down. And she said, Mom, I told Mom that I had seen this little girl, and she said, oh, that's just your imagination. They used to tell me that all the time. I had a vivid imagination, and I did. But anyway, I did see this little girl, and I knew that she was there. But I never said anything else about it. Can we stop 1 second so I can blow my nose? So I grew up on this farm. I was an early developer person, and I ended up, this is like the good news and bad news kind of thing of my life, but I ended up getting pregnant when I was young, 16. I got married. So I quit going to school. I don't have a high school diploma.
Well, neither do
And
I.
no, it's not so bad. And so my husband and I moved to Richmond. And when I got to Richmond, Lisa tells everybody that I dragged she and John, my son, all over Richmond, Virginia, looking for a church because my family's so old, we have our own church. They built their own church. So that's where,
Do you live far from Richmond?
yes, it's about 100 miles from Richmond.
Oh, so Bracey's 100 miles from Richmond?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
closer to North Carolina. We lived on the Roanoke River, which is now Lake Gaston, and right
Hmm.
across that river is North Carolina. So it
Well,
was
David and
close.
I are going to be there in end of February at a
Oh, and we
conference.
definitely,
So I
yeah,
think we'll figure it out. If it's only 100 miles, I don't mind driving 100 miles.
yeah,
So we'll have
it'll
to
be
get together,
great.
but we'll get back to that after the
Yeah.
show.
So So anyway, I moved to Richmond and it was like a big city. I was so happy. I was just everything was great. And I took a yoga class and from this woman, Marshall Bogle, who was like lithe and the epitome of everything a yoga teacher should be. So beautiful. And she was a professor at VCU, which was the university there. And she would do these long meditations, which we explained to us what we were doing and everything, which I didn't know anything about until then. And I started having people come and talk to me, invisible people to other people, but I could see them. And they were like from another time period. I mean, they would have long robes on and stuff. And I didn't say anything at first because mom and dad had told me so often how I had a vivid imagination. But finally, I she came and sat next to me when we were finishing this meditation. And afterwards, I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I told her what had been happening. And she said, "You are so blessed. Don't be afraid." She said, "I knew that something was happening to you. I could see your aura changing and stuff." And she said, "So just be grateful that you're in touch with that part of yourself." Or,
Mhm. Very good advice. Um, you're frozen. This is an electrically funny day. I'm gonna pause here for a second until you come back. And
oh, okay. So after meeting her, I started going into these Bible study classes with these ladies that were right out of central casting for Virginia First Family ladies. They wore their white gloves. We just, God. Anyway, but they were Bible scholars and they just looked, perfect. They'd have their little hats on and their gloves, and then they just knock you down by what they thought about what Jesus said here or Moses said there and everything. But they'd been studying it together for like 25 years. And so that really was inspiring to me. And I had a lot of interesting experiences. And one of the ladies said, "I want to introduce you to someone that I think you will really enjoy getting to know." And it was George Ritchie. George Ritchie was one of the first people that talked about his near death when he was in the army in Texas. And he lived relatively close to me, but he had groups that met, and I started becoming part of his group and doing things. And he was the he was a doctor, a medical doctor, but he was like a great big guy and funny, and he was just perfect for the things that he was doing. And so I had been married to my husband at that time, John, for I don't know, 11, maybe 12 years. And I decided that I wanted a divorce. So I can't hear you. Yes.
so we were talking about someone you met.
Yes. So when I was in high school, I met and married my future husband, who was my husband for 10 years, and then we got divorced. And we got divorced thanks to George Ritchie, who was a great counselor. And he said to me, "You don't need to stay here. You don't need to stay in this. You have a bigger world to conquer," or whatever. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But and we would go to up to the mountains in Virginia. I would take my children 2 weeks every summer, and we would meditate in the woods and sing and dance, and he would give talks. And one time he came back from every night he would go up on the side of this mountain and meditate and pray and talk to God and whatever. And one morning he came back and he was standing to give us his talk that he always did at 10 o'clock. And he said, "I don't really know how to say this. I don't know exactly how to approach this. But last night a spaceship came down and I talked with aliens." Well, we didn't know much of anything like that back then. And we all just, all of us in the audience just looked at each other like, what does he mean? So he told us what they said to him and, about the world and that there were lots of big changes coming and things like that. But he said, and this is the most important message, and I want you all to remember this. And so we're all paying really strict attention. He said, "When the spaceships come, get on them."
Wow.
And we,
And
we were
what year
just,
was that? What year was that?
this was 73, 74, something like that.
In the
Maybe a little
60s.
earlier.
In the
Yeah.
60s, as a child, I met a man who showed us a picture, said he'd been up in a craft. I mean, I was only 7 at the time, but I remember the whole incident. So that's
Yeah.
why I was curious what the years were.
Well, so it was really interesting. And George and I remained friends my entire life until he finally retired and he died a few years ago. But he was the most dynamic guy and the most, um, be yourself, be your best self, and do all of these things. And so that's kind of what we did, what I did. So I got divorced, and the children were going to this fancy private school in Richmond. And so I sold the townhouse after we got divorced, and then I decided to go to Europe and travel, and that's what I did. So I went around and, fell in love about every 30 days. I swear, I was very busy as it goes. And I went to met this Egyptian guy. Oh my God, he wanted to marry me so bad. And my mom wanted me to marry him because he was writing my mom these wonderful letters about how much he loved me. And he really did. I mean, I think that we were, you know, meant to be together there for a short time, but I was not getting married to anybody no matter what. I didn't care how much I loved them. I was like, I don't like being married. I don't like any of it. Anyway, so um, when I was in Virginia Beach, I became a part of the Edgar Casey community. And I gave little talks about, for people that were interested in Casey and things like that. And somehow, I forget now why, but I moved to Athens, Georgia. I was trying to go to this place in New Mexico and paint. I had become very artistic. And I stopped in Athens to see this friend of mine who had been there in Richmond, and she just begged me to stay, begged me to stay. Oh my God. And so I just got a job at the University of Georgia, and that's where I met my second husband, a much younger man than my first husband. So we lived there in Athens for a while, and then we moved to Virginia Beach. And that's really when my whole life, it seems, began in a serious way. I went to work for Merrill Lynch, took one of those tests, and they said, "Oh, you'll be really good at this." And I went to work for them, and I could not do that. It was like trying to talk old ladies out of their money to put in stocks and stuff. I was like, I did it really well, and they really liked it, but I just couldn't do it. I just didn't think it was right. So I didn't do that. And then I decided to divorce him, the second husband. And my sister Brenda was traveling, I think. And so I spent that summer taking care of her son, who was 7 or 8, like that. And while I was at her house, she had a really big house high up on a hill so she could see the ocean and stuff. It was really nice. While I was there, a woman came, knocked on my door. This is how I became a literary agent. Knocked on my door and said, Carol said you could help me. Okay, what do you need? And she immediately, her name was Norma, she immediately started crying because it was very upsetting to her that her
Oh, God. Now, where is the freezing?
came in and said all of this.
Go ahead.
And so I decided that I wouldn't do anything and I tried to help her. So I told her if it was my thing, I would. Before this, I had worked at WHRO and I had won awards for them for getting money for the station. And it was the first time I'd ever tried to do anything like that. And boy, they liked me a lot. So I said to her that I would help. I didn't work. I worked there whenever I wanted to. That was kind of deal we had. And so she wrote the letter, just like I said, I had outlined. And then she came to me that afternoon and said, I want you to read this. And I said, okay. So I read it. And it was pretty much, I mean, that girl could have been a lawyer. And the last line, though, said, if you have any questions, please call Sandra Martin at 422-4921. And I was like, Norma, you can't do that. I don't know anything about it. And I don't know, I might make it worse. I was really nervous about it, but she started crying again. So I just said, okay, it's okay. Go, go, go. So she did. And I didn't think much about it again. She was working part-time then. So I just sort of let it slide. And it was like maybe 2 months later that one morning early at 8 o'clock, I got a phone call and it was this guy with this really squeaky high voice going, I don't know who you are. I've never heard of you. You can't do this. We have a contract. He was just like on this little bandwagon. And he was being really rude. And I said, look, I have never been spoken to in this tone of voice, and I refuse to accept this. And, da da da. And I just went on and on. And I said, you're going to have to renegotiate this deal. And when I said that, in my mind, was saying to myself, what the hell are you doing, Sandra? You know how to do this? But anyway, so I called Norma. She came over and I told her what had happened. And she said, please, please just talk to them. And by then I was like, they're just treating her badly. I'm going to take care of her. I, it's one of those things with the oldest, they always take care of other people. So anyway, then the next day I called him and I told him exactly I told him exactly what had happened and that I had no experience, but I had gone to the Barnes and Noble and bought a How to Be Your Own Literary Agent paperback book, and I read it that night. And it didn't seem all that hard to me. I had no idea what I was talking about. Anyway, but he was going to have to do that, and he said, "Well, we'll have to see about that." And he slammed the phone down. And of course, in about 20 minutes, he called back and said, "Okay, we'll negotiate." So it went from 5,000, 20. And she would say every time it went up, take it, take it, take it, because I need this money. And I go,
Ah,
no, they haven't said no yet. you know. So I got this young lady $42,000 for this book on how to take care of your cat holistically. And I do believe that she must have told every single person in Virginia Beach. And that was really how it started because there were all these writers at ARE. And I knew a lot of them, and they were going, we don't even get an advance. We just get whatever because they were doing things for ARE, and ARE was didn't have a lot of money. So, but anyhow,
What is
so that
ARE for our
the
listeners?
Edgar Casey organization that has all of his readings and has conferences and teaches and all of that.
So
Really great organization.
when you went out to help someone else, you didn't know that inadvertently it was going to actually put you on the path of
I
becoming a
did not.
literary agent.
I
So,
know.
so let me go to some of my literary agent questions I have here for you.
Okay.
I did have some questions about um, we now know how you got on the path, which was my question.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to know how you ended up moving to New York, and did that affect your career and your life? And were there any dreams involved in this
Yes.
transition? How this all
Good,
came
good.
about?
That was excellent. Good question. So, what I did was because I just felt such a sense of, because I had been a serious reader my whole life. In fact, time, our entire family is like that. And so I wanted to do that. And so I just, went back to the library and found all the names of the publishers. And I would just call whoever the president of the publisher was in that telephone number and tell them that I was a new agent and I wanted to, I was selling how-to books mostly, and whatever. And that I wanted to come and have an appointment. And because it was like a publisher, they would pass me around because they don't really want to do much, and so I would go up there and I would spend like a day at Dell Publishing and meet everybody. I tell them that this was so different. I would tell them about what the whole entire United States was in, this whole thing of New Age. None of them took, uh, none of them meditated. They didn't know what that was. It was a whole new world. And so I sold like 12 books on how to interpret your dreams because that was really my focus. Meditation books, how to be psychic books. I mean, just any kind of how to you can imagine. I did those things. And so people at first were not scornful, but I was new to town. I didn't know anything about New York City, which was an understatement. And I was Southern. I had a Southern voice. This publisher actually said to me one time after we had a meeting, and he stood up to shake my hand, and he said to me, you're really smart for a Southern woman.
Oh, God.
I was like, oh, thank you.
I can make a mean pecan pie too.
That would have been a great resort. And I do actually. So so anyway, it was really funny, strange, but I would just go to every editor I could talk to, and I would tell them, this is what's happening in the rest of the country. You live in New York, and nobody is interested nor knows. They're not introspective. That was like the basic thing. And they were all fighting for the next job, the next, anything, because it was so hard. New York was a hard place to come and start and to do anything.
A lot of competition. It's not
Yes,
and
and
people.
yes, and most of the other agents had never heard of me, obviously, because I had never been an agent before.
Right,
And
right.
so I just wanted to be under the radar, which I did really well. And but eventually the publishing houses, the publisher would say, can, like, the person that I just knew a name of, I didn't even know who they were. Can I have take you to lunch? Can I have a dinner with you? And they would just say, I was sitting with them on the west side of the river, and we were eating at a restaurant there. And this woman, powerful woman, I didn't even realize it at the time, but she just did her arm over like to New Jersey. What are they interested in? I don't even think people read over there. was going, yep, they do read.
Ah,
It was really weird and strange the preconceptions that the publishing industry had about the rest of the country. And
so
so,
this would be fair to say that you were selling books to big publishers who'd never acquired books in the metaphysical world because they
no,
did not
never.
believe it was valid or interesting.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you opened up their eyes.
Yes.
And
And
what year was that this was
um
happening?
the late 70s. I did it in Virginia Beach for 2 years.
Hmm.
And because I was living in New York in 1979, I think, or 78. And they were so funny, these people, because I was so Southern, just like I am right now, you know. Hi, how do you do? It's so nice to meet you, blah, 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 you know. I was not cautious at all. And I met this woman who I was, I don't know where this came from, actually, when I look back on it. I was just moving forward all the time. I would reckon I was representing this guy who did Walking on Fire, fireworks, and I called the city of New York to ask for a fire truck to come and close off the street so he could walk on those coals. And ABC, whatever morning news, could do a story on him. I can't believe that I actually did such things. Looking back on it, but I did.
I wished I would have known you then.
I
Uh,
know. I wish I would have known you too. It would have
I
been great.
We did that here with a Siberian shaman in the back of on my property here. And my son laid out all the coals and he had to tend the fire for a very long time. And then she had us all line up. And at first I was like, I don't think I want to do this. And then all of a sudden she just, and you do it, you
Fast.
don't have any
Yeah.
shoes on, you're barefoot
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
and I'm looking at this, beautifully, rectangular walking area that you're supposed to walk on with her, and I'm watching them do it, and I'm thinking, well, it looks pretty hot, but she took my hand and said, "Now we go,"
Yeah.
and it's definitely a shamanic experience. I don't
Yeah.
can't explain how I could touch the tip of a lighter right now or a flame and it will burn my finger, but I could walk across these hot burning coals and I did it 3 times and there was nothing. No pain, no burning, no anything. And it gave you a sense of power and some sort of a cleansing, I feel, as well. I want to just mention that the lighting in your room has changed drastically.
Should I go turn the light on
I
above me?
I think we should try that.
Okay.
I'm not even going to bother to pause. We can just, all right.
Yeah, very well. So there was whoever the executive producer was, CBS was there, and all of these, people that because they were filming. So it was lots of people there, and they were just like you were saying, oh my God, I can't believe people are actually doing that. But there was a woman, one of the producers there was kept looking at me and looking at me, and finally she said, Sandra, I know that we don't know each other, but I want to introduce you to somebody that I think that you will really like. She's from the South. I had a lot of that when I was in New York.
Uh,
She's from the South. You'll like her. And so the next day I met with her, and she was actually from Richmond. And we knew a lot of things that, similar things. And she was a little bit older than me, but not much. But she was the director of Sesame Street.
oh,
And what a hoot that was. I mean, she was just amazing. And on top of that, she smoked pot all the time. I think she was just like, I was going, how do you? Anyway, she was really funny. I just loved her so much, and she loved me. And because we bonded on so many different levels. And she didn't know anything at all about this field at all. And she was like a regular New York person that I'm trying to, do my best, do this job and do this. And she had a lot of social friends kind of thing. And but strange things happened to me the whole time when I first moved to New York. Like I met this woman, I don't know, at a party, I guess. But I would go to parties and it would be Woody Allen and all these, and I would think, how did I get in this party? I don't even know. But anyway, so I met this woman
That's New
who,
York.
yes, I met this woman who really wanted to talk to me. And her husband was Galbraith. I forgot his first name, but her name was Bootsy. And I just loved her because she was so funny and she was, you know, the opposite of everything that the New Yorkers who were like very not confronting, but they go, "You don't believe that shit, do you?" They would say to me, things like that.
You're talking to a New Yorker here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't believe that stuff. But anyway, so we became really good friends, and her husband uh, was big in government and stuff, and she was so much fun. And she had this experience with an alien, a UFO, when she was from Alabama, and she was a uh, what do they call them? They go and take care of children in another country. She went from
An au
Alabama to
pair,
France.
au
Au
pair.
pair, yeah. And she did that, and so she spoke perfect French, and she was really a beautiful woman on top of all that. But she was so interested in all of these things, and she said, "Can I?" So she just ended up taking me all these places that she thought would I would find interesting, and that those people would have never met anybody like me. And one of them was the Rockefellers.
Oh, wow.
So I have pictures of me at David Rockefeller's house, which was right across from the museum, the Metropolitan Museum, and we just got along like a house afire. And he was so interested in everything that I was doing, and I was just looking around uh,
I bet you
the
were a
living
breath
room,
of
and then we
fresh
went to,
air. I bet you were a
yeah,
breath of fresh air for him and for all those other New Yorkers that were used to the same sort of types of people that
yeah,
maybe were their goals were all money making and advancing and everything. And you were looking into things about life and spirituality, and
yeah.
nobody else was really, so that was really, I think, inspiring for them.
I think it was too on a level, and he had already been funding alternative health research for a long time. And at one point, uh, God, not Mike. What was the guy who did all of those? Oh, it'll come to me, I guess. But I would just meet all these people that were like real movers and shakers, and so. But anyway, so anyhow, I actually went to Europe with this woman, Bootsy Galbraith, and we just went to the best places and everywhere in the country.
Did
She
you
had a
know
driver.
Rosalind? Did you know Rosalind Targ?
Yes, I met her a couple of times. I really liked her.
I really, I Russ, she was Russell's
Yeah,
stepmother,
yes,
and her and David and I hit it off so that every time we came to New York, we would see her and go out to dinner with her and take her to dinner. And wherever we took her, it was like we were bringing in the queen or someone. I don't know, but wherever you went on the streets with her, like the doors open, the tables were set. It didn't matter
yes,
how crowded it was. She was there,
yes.
and she carried herself that way also. And she had a penthouse, and I had never been in a penthouse before. So here I am in a New York apartment in a penthouse, and I'm looking, and I'm right opposite the Empire State Building, and I'm looking at all the lights and the colors, and her room is filled with books because she was a literary
A
agent,
literary agent. Yeah.
and her husband, Russell Targ's father, was a publisher. And so the two of them were some power team. So when I went in the
Yeah.
bathroom to use her bathroom, you didn't want to leave because when you sat on the toilet, there was a complete array of her with all the most famous people in the world, every
Wow.
different picture of all the different people that she'd been with.
Wow.
And she brought us out. We got to hold the original first Godfather.
Oh
And
my God.
we got to touch all these pieces of history in our lap. And anytime you just turned in her apartment because it was packed, you just said, "Oh wow, look at that! Oh, that's an original la 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 for the first copy of this." And she was so vibrant and alive and full of the life force energy. And I wish there had been more years to get to know her. She passed away, but
Yeah.
I was grateful to get to see to just walk into her world. So I have a little tiny piece of what you're talking about. If you knew one of those kind of people, you would get introduced to meet all kinds of amazing people at all these other parties. So a whole world opened from a little farm girl who was out in the
I know.
tending vegetables. Now she's
I
tending
mean,
people.
I would send my mom pictures of me with famous people, and because I would tell her, and I knew that they just couldn't absorb it because how could I know those people, movie stars and stuff? And I would just say, I don't know, I just just know them. But it was so great because Emily became my best friend, and her husband, Lynn Belzer, was Richard Belzer's brother. And Richard, I published his books or sold his books, I forget. And but he had bought a place in France on the river, and it was so beautiful. And for 2 or 3 summers, I would go there and spend a month because he that man. Oh God, let me tell you this one story. I don't know if you should keep it in there, but it would be funny. So
Yes.
he would say he was finishing that series, that TV series he did, which I do know the name of, but whatever it was.
Right.
And he would stop and then he'd take a month off. And so he'd take me with him. And we would go to the south of France. And uh, so he's going to pick me up this time. Most of the time I went separately because my schedule was always overpacked. So he picks me up in the car and, his car that whatever they were called, those cars, call up a car. That was that. So we get to the airport, and then we're getting to the airport, and he says to me, "Now, Sandra, people stop me all the time because I forgot what his name was on that show, but I would hear people yell out that name to him.
This is Belzer. Who is this?
It's
Belzer.
Richard Belzer,
Richard
and
Belzer.
he was in two different TV shows that were cop oriented.
Hmm.
Uh,
If
God, I'm
David was
so
sitting
bad
here,
with
he'd
those things.
know, but no,
Yeah.
my memory doesn't bring it up.
Yeah. So anyway, um, he tells me now, I'm going to move really fast so people don't bother me. And he said, I like everything, but, we are on a close deadline and we got to get to the airport. And so we zoom into the airport and we get out and people they go, "Hey, Bells," or whatever they called him. And, but he would just keep walking. I was practically running, keeping up with him. And so we finally get on the plane and he's just like, we're in first class and he's just like, "Oh my God." And he just, is exhausted from stress, I realized later. So we change planes in Paris, I guess, and then we go to Rodez. I think we take a train. Well, we took three different modes of travel to get there. And so his wife came to pick us up. And we get in her car. And she had a big, he put his suitcase in the front seat for some reason. So the two of us were in the back seat. And he just goes, "Oh, thank God." And he sits down and he pulls from his sleeves, from his socks, bags and bags of pot. I mean, so much pot you would
My
not
kind of
believe.
guy, my kind of guy.
He has it in his shirt. He
Oh my
has it
God.
everywhere.
I only use
Just,
one spot. I never thought of many spots.
oh my God, he was just like it was everywhere. And he's so skinny, you didn't even notice that he was like puffy, but he
Right.
was, yeah. So I'm just going, "Oh my God." He said, "Sandra, I just couldn't tell you. I knew that in your face, everybody would see something was wrong." So we get to his house, which was really beautiful on this little river. And his wife, this is, I don't ever, I mean, they're both dead, but the first thing she said, she hadn't seen him in months, and he opened the door and she said, "Did you get picked up at Lifetime? How much money is that going to be?" That's all she wanted to know was how much money he was going to bring. But anyway, but Richard and I were good friends, and his brother actually sort of, I don't know he looked like his brother, so people would think that he was Richard, and he had a real psychological problem with that, just dealing with it, and it was hard for him. But anyway, so
Well, so you've got to not only have great stories. Are these in your book with that you wrote? Are these stories about interactions, or do you need to write another book now
I
about
need to
all?
write
I
another
think you need
book.
another book about all the amazing interactions you had from the New York City. Maybe it's only takes place in New York City or something, but your
But
life
I,
as
I shortly thereafter I started flying to LA, and I had an office in an apartment in LA.
Mhm.
Mel Gibson gave me an office because I represented all of those guys that did conspiracies, and he was so into conspiracies.
Wow.
So I had an office there. And I tell you what, I had been in New York City trying to get all of my guys, all those guys that are now on the History Channel, um, deals, TV deals, and all this, and saying the same thing in LA like I did in New York. You don't know happening out there. People are really interested in Mothman and all these things, and they go, "What the hell are you talking about?"
I
But I
just
knew that
had
that
the
was,
authors of the Mothman book on. I had them as guests, and now they're writing a book about people who uh, have had, I think, experiences as a young person, or people who've had these paranormal things happen. So I'll be coming out in their book because they interviewed like six different people about their life with these sort of things.
oh.
So I think
So
it's
who
coming
who
out.
are they? Who are
Oh,
the new
I,
guys?
they're very nice.
Well, yeah,
Um,
you can just send it to me
yeah,
some.
I'll send it to you on the
Yeah,
email. I'll send you
yeah,
their names and the book. I have the book here as well. I'm like you now, at this age in the 70s, it's hard to retrieve a name sometimes. And when
oh
you're
my
doing the
God,
podcast, you
yes.
feel like, uh-oh. And then 10 minutes later in the show, all of a sudden, oh, that was the guy's name. So the
Exactly.
young people will not understand this, but the people that are our age will understand
Well,
that this is
definitely.
part of the
Yeah,
aging process. We can't
it
help
is.
it.
It's crazy. So anyway, so I spent
Mm.
those summers with him out there, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it. But the truth is that I got bored. I'd like to do something. He was happy with putting his feet up and looking at the river go by and puffing away. He was a
Right.
very happy guy. But anyway, so I came back to the States, and by then I actually had clients in London. So then I would go to London for meetings and do things because there's a huge metaphysical, weird world UFOs and stuff group
Well,
there. And
they're my second, how the podcasts tell you who your viewers are around the
yeah,
world. They're my second most watched group is from England, which
wow.
I believe is because of those exact reasons you're saying. And I was just there this last March and went into a metaphysical bookstore where Aleister Crowley used to do Thoreau. They had all his.
I went to that same
Did you?
bookstore. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
wasn't that? And the women, when you come in, they say, "Hi, well, we're both witches. We just want you to know." And I said, "Great." And then they showed us the little room downstairs. Well, you went, you saw. It was an amazing little shop. And you didn't know it.
Yeah,
We just fell into it by accident because I saw the wheel on the front, the Ferris wheel in the front,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that drew me to that. It was across the street or something. I said, "Let's go in over there." And we spent some time there. I love those ladies in that shop. It was and to see like these people that you read about's original tarot cards or their things that they sat at that
yeah.
table and did their seance. I just thought it was great.
I know. I love that too. But Ingo Swann was really one of my best friends, and when I was in New York forever, my son married his niece. So
Oh,
I know. I can't get away from that. So, but I got a phone call from a publishing house. I've forgotten which house it was. It doesn't even matter. I don't know why I'm trying to think of it. That said, do you know anything that we've come up with this idea and we think you might be able to help us? Well, what is it? We've decided, because it was around Halloween, I guess, that we want to create a book, someone to create a book that you know that has little spells, but they're like funny spells and things that, you can use from your kitchen and things like that. And I was like, I don't know anybody like that. But anyway, so, but I knew this woman who was a professor at NYC, New York. What is the name of that university? Anyway, down there, downtown. And I called her up and I said, "This is what they want." And she was a professor. She was just like, "I can't even talk to you." She was so we hung up. So, and it was a definite no. She was not doing that. It was serious what she did, and it was serious. But
Hmm.
anyway, so I thought, I knew that there was a shop down near where Ingo lived because I would go with him to the shop every now and then. And that was all witches, and they all went there, and that's where they got their stuff. So after work that day, I called first and I said that I would like to talk to someone. Does anybody write that is there? And, I made it really intriguing for this girl to say, yes, come on down. So I went down and she was right out of central casting for a witch.
Hmm.
And that's what she was, a witch. But she had been I forgot the Jewish sect that's really, really strict about everything. And she couldn't
Uh,
do anything and
a
she just had to
Hasidim?
leave.
Was she a Hasidim?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I was like that.
Where's the
But
way?
so, yeah.
Yeah, the Hasidim.
So she got into being a witch after that.
Yeah. Well, she had the Kabbalah.
She did. That's exactly. So I asked her to come up and to the office, and I could talk to her. She said, so I was talking to her on the phone, all this, and she said to me, "So you want to look at the merchandise too?" I was like, "No, I want to see if you can write." That's all I wanted. But anyway, she came up, and she actually had a master's degree in writing, and she was trying to write screenplays and things like that. She was really pretty, and she was really nice, and she was very gay and she told me her whole life about how hard it was growing up like that. And they all lived in a group place somewhere north of the city. Anyway, so all of a sudden I forgot why I'm telling this story.
We were talking about the woman that you went to see if she'd write a book of herbal
Yeah,
and
but
spells
there
that
was so
the publisher
many.
said to you, "Can you get someone to write one that's kind of fun?" And,
Yeah, and she actually did that. But so I would go. Ingo lived like 2 blocks from there, and he lived all the way, almost all the way downtown. He was very close to.
he was in the Bowery.
Yeah,
I
he was on the
went and
Bowery.
visited him a few times. We had some very
Yeah.
beautiful connections.
Oh, good.
I was walking down the street with him. We were going to get him his medication or something at the pharmacy. It
Uh,
was just him and I. And as we were walking, somebody was, New York, the big wide streets, the people are all coming at you and everywhere.
yeah.
This woman walks by, and all of a sudden I just get this like feeling like, in my body. And he turns to me, he said, "Yeah, she's going to die soon." And it was the first time I was with someone who could verbalize what I was feeling, that if I had another friend or someone next to me would think I was crazy as a loon. But he he knew what I was what was happening. And I love that connection. And then another time I went to visit him, I went to those, how they have those beautiful floral things. That's the one thing about New York. You can get amazing flowers on the corner streets
Everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere for a great price, not a ridiculous price.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking there and I'm mulling over it. I'm saying, I have to pick the best one for him. And I end up getting him a whole bouquet of Gerber daisies. And when he opens the door, the first thing he says, "You brought me my favorite flower." And I was so happy that I had intuited and spent the time there psychically trying to figure out which was Ingo's flower. So I have a plant that I planted here that I call the Ingo one. and it's a continued Gerber daisy. It's the only time I planted it in his memory, and it continually gives me beautiful orange Gerber daisies every summer. So I call
Wow.
it the Ingo plant.
That is so nice. I love Ego, and he asked me to marry him about every month, and
Oh, how sweet!
I would say, Ingo, you're gay,
Right, that's what I
and
was.
he would say, Sandra, I can make love to a woman, and I was like,
Oh,
I don't think so for me.
I talked to him about sexuality.
Uh-huh.
Because I said to him, how come whenever I do remote viewings for Russell or Dean at the Institute of Noetic Sciences or for either of them, I said, whenever I do any of these things, afterwards I have a tremendous amount of sexual energy. And nobody's ever wanting to discuss this with me and the scientists. Like, why does that happen? And so he just handed me his book, Sexuality
They'll
and
take,
right.
oh yeah, yeah.
He said, read this and you'll find the answer.
He was such a riot, and he was so. I mean, I saw him at least once or twice a week the whole time I lived there. Every now and
Oh,
then he would get mad at me because I wasn't doing something he wanted me to do. And he would just go, I'm just like, I'm not talking to you. And I'd be like, okay. I could use a break because he always wanted something. I need you to do this for me. I need you to do that. I want you to introduce me to this person or whatever. And he came to every party I had. When I first opened my office, every time I had a book come out, I would give a party there and I would have all these people come. And, he would be like the center of attention because he was the psychic guy. It
right,
was
right.
great.
And and a very fun and exciting person to be around.
Yes. And
So
so smart.
I feel like I'm enjoying ourselves so much, but I want to get back to a couple of my questions here
Okay.
because I feel more like I'm having such a great visit with you. I hope our listeners are enjoying it as much as I am. I feel like we've answered a few of these things about the big publishers, about some stories that happened along the way, about dreams. Um, okay, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about publishing. Does Paraview Inc. still exist today? And you have seen the tremendous changes because we're talking about publishing in the past and the stories that we're sharing right now. But can you tell us what has happened in the publishing industry? And can you advise listeners like myself who are still trying to figure out whether they should self-publish or just do audiobooks or just throw in the towel?
I tell you, it is one of those things that is so hard. It breaks my heart. People aren't buying books, number one.
That's why I'm asking.
Number two is even audiobooks are below that, but more people are doing audiobooks than I. I'm a part of a big group of women that are interested in all these things. I am the only one who still buys a book.
I when I tell that to my guests, I say, no, I don't want to read the book online. I said, I like to hold the book in my hand.
My
I want the
hand, me too.
paper. Maybe I'm old school, and everybody
I
that's
want
young
the
is like,
experience. Yeah,
right. And I want to take it with me outside when I'm sitting by myself to read it there, or I want
yeah.
to have it and take it with me. I don't know. I feel a different feeling than when I'm holding up an iPad and
I
reading
know.
somebody's story. It just doesn't feel the same to me. I want the book.
Lisa, my daughter, who is still doing this, but she doesn't do hardly any sales. She mostly does publishing for other people that she can't find somebody to buy it or whatever. She goes, Mom, even as a good a salesperson as you were and still are, I guess, but she said, it's so disheartening because the everybody's losing their job. People don't, and most of them don't even work in the office anymore.
Mhm.
And I think, did I show you where I lived? My office was 52nd and Broadway, and right across the street was the Ed Sullivan Theater, the old Ed Sullivan Theater, and there was another
Just
building.
there. Went to
Yeah,
see Stephen Colbert.
yes, way
Yes,
back. Yeah,
yes.
that's true. But uh, they have taken all of those buildings down. I don't know if it's three buildings or two buildings, and built. this huge publishing gigantic building because uh, Random House bought almost all the other publishing companies because nobody was making a living.
Oh,
And so it's really, really hard. And it ends up being sort of niche marketing. And I mean, I have so many friends who have written their books and self-published them. Now it's not so expensive and everything. And they just publish the book and then they realize that only their family members are going to buy because they don't know how to promote it. And so I ended up for like 3 or 4 years just working as a promoter for people to say, these are the things you have to do. This is what you have to say. This is how you get to this next level. You have to have your book out there. You have to be out there. You have got to do something. And that is proactive. You just can't sit at your desk behind your computer and write another book until you can get that word out there. It's just so hard.
oh no. Okay. All right. This has been a very exciting electrical storm day, and we've had our little issues, but hopefully our listeners are sticking by us. I have a few more questions, and then we'll sign off for the day. One of them is if you had to pick one person you published and affected your life, who would that be?
Oh, Lord. That is a hard question. When I would take on a client, I would just like fall in love with that manuscript. I'd walk it around and read it to all the girls in the office and just say, "Can you believe this? This is so great." But I felt like that every time I found something I thought was worthwhile. So it's really hard. I liked Jim Garrison's book because it was a larger than life. I mean, it was about the world and what was happening and stuff. But I mean, I'm just looking at all these books. I liked every one of them.
Uh,
I remember when I first sold the first big dream book, I just practically wanted to stop people on the street and say, "This is a really great book. This guy is a UVA guy. He knows everything there is to know about dreams."
that's that. I'm saying everyone you represented were very fortunate and lucky to have you. And
I should send you Courtney Brown. You know how people write, and this is the most terrible thing, but I admit it. When the book was published and I would get a box of them or whatever, I would mostly send them to the writer and I would not go back and go through it. And so all of these wonderful people wrote the most glowing acknowledgments. Thank you, Sandra. And I never read them. And it was
I
only like 10 years ago that I realized that they were in there. And
uh,
there was one that just made me cry.
well, you were so involved in everything you were doing that you weren't even had time to
Yeah,
receive all
yeah.
the
And
beautiful
so it was just
positive
moving forward constantly.
feedback. So I there's two more things, and then we'll sign
Okay.
off, or well, actually three quickies. My dad loved Art Bell. What did
I
you
did
do
too.
with him? Was it a book or what how did you
Yes,
know?
I sold his book, and his book was with Whitley Strieber. Whitley was a client of mine who did all of those Anne Rice movies and weird things, because he was really into go. We would be driving somewhere, and he would just come up with a story out of his mind that would have been a great fiction novel, and he'd say, "What do you think? Should I work on that?"
Ah,
I know he was just gifted with that, but uh, so if they were coming to town, and I had booked them all these different places, the two of them about their book, and it was about the weather, and everything that they said about it was what happened, and they were made fun of by the big people, but anyway, so they came to town, and I had gotten a little town car for Whitley and I to drive around because he was there before what's his name was. But what's his name was such a big name, Art Bell, that when he came up in front of the building, all of us, we were so happened to be standing by this big table that looked out over the, he had like a limo that was twice as long as this little car that I had gotten for Willie. And Willie just looked at me and said, I don't think that's right. So what happened was that we all got in that car. Like the girls that were with me and stuff, we all got in and we went to all the places where they were giving talks, like this group of groupies got out of the
That's so
car.
wonderful. You
I
must
know it
write
was
all
great.
these stories up. Here I am encouraging you to write a book. So
But it
there
was
is
great.
there is one book that you did do recently, and we're getting down to the end of my question. And it's snapshots, memories, and recipes. And I know your daughter Lisa inspired you to write this. And I was just wondering if you could just tell a little bit about the book for our listeners. And also that we're going to have you back because I believe we should have a talk about Mongolia because that's
Yes.
something that you and I share together of a love for the Mongolian people and the Mongolian country. So since we don't have enough time today to get into that, let's finish with snapshots, memories, and recipes, and let's have you back here again.
Thank you. I would love to do it. I love talking to you. And it's so good just to see you. It makes me want to fly out to California.
You're always welcome, and there's a lovely guest room here.
So I think that all of the books that I published and the ones that I published myself were books that were so meaningful to me. Like one book was this woman who was a professor at a university in Washington D.C. I forget what it was, but she was from South Africa, somewhere like that. She had that great accent, and her book was really good. It was really well written, and because I love travel books and things like that, I just thought it was great. And nobody bought her book. And she was out there, trying to sell it and stuff. And she was so disappointed. And when that happened, it would just hurt my heart so much because,
Mm,
it takes a lot to write a book. It takes a lot to put your thoughts down and how you feel and your life to bare your soul, so to speak. It's an
yeah,
amazing experience to go through, I think, for a writer, but it's also an amazing experience for someone to read that and then realize that our lives are so similar, that we have often the same issues to deal with, and that there's always hope and you can always, come again. So one of the I represented a lot of those remote viewers because I published the first book that about it, and I did not even know. This is how stupid I am at times. I did not even realize because Ingo asked me to do this. And he said, Sandra, if people don't know that I did all that, I will die and nobody will ever know what I did. And
um,
he was really heartbroken about that. And so he had these two guys and he said they can do it. He wouldn't do it himself. And I did not realize that he wouldn't do it because it was, he had signed those secret papers for the government. And so they really came after me when they finally realized what was out there. And he was devastated by it that, that all of that would happen afterwards. But he kept that book with him all the time because he had published other books himself, his own books.
mhm.
And but he was a really sensitive guy for a Virgo. That's a
Yes.
really sensitive guy, and it was really hard for him to. He really believed that he would die and nobody would ever know his work, what
Uh,
he'd done.
and I was the one that invited him to go to the International Remote Viewing Association conference because he had refused to go for years. And I said, they want to honor you. And I called him and I said, you really should come. And I credit myself for being the person that inspired him to say
I'm
yes.
so glad. I did not know you did that, and it was a blessing
It was
because
because he
he
got
gave
honored
everything for that.
there. And
Yeah.
when he came in, I was doing a registration then. I was helping out with registration. And when he came in and saw me, he blew me a kiss. And I know that was his thank you because he
Yeah,
was so like, I said, no, they just want to honor you. They just want to, it's a beautiful thing. It's going to be wonderful. And and then we went off for a party at Hal Putoff's house for a barbecue after. And I'm only there because I'm a guest of Russell's driving him around. It's
yeah.
not like Hal Putoff would have invited me to his house. But it was a
That's funny.
great, and that's when I met the woman who wrote all those books about UFOs. She was
Oh
interviewing the
yeah,
one who
yeah.
died. I can't remember her name, the guy that was dying in the hospital in Europe somewhere, the one who was at Area 51 or something, and he wanted to.
Oh yeah.
Right. Do you remember her name? Oh, God.
No, but I can see her face.
Okay, so I was driving her in the car. I'm just
Wow.
I'm just a driver, you know?
I know that's how I feel a lot,
Yes.
especially nowadays. But yeah, you
So
just have to do what you have to do.
so just quickly, your memories and recipes in the snapshot book. Are we finding recipes that are passed down through generations, or are these
Yeah,
recipes
some
is
were
Southern?
moms. Yeah, some were moms, and they were all Southern. My grandmother, Maud Rose, the the original people that started their family, um, she was like a master cook. She was a chef, and everything she made, and she would make all these different kinds of rolls and stuff. Oh Lord, it was so good you just could hardly believe it. And she was really, really beautiful. She was a beautiful woman. Hold on, I'm gonna show you her picture.
Yes,
Been sitting so long I can hardly move.
I know that feeling as well. I'm going to have the same experience when I try to stand up.
Oh,
It's not like the old days of jumping up.
I know. Well, I
But
swear,
just
I
keep
must have
moving.
moved it. I don't see it. But I'll send it to you because she was like an angel on the planet.
Hmm.
Such a good person. I don't know where I would have moved it to, but God, that's one of the things I do is move things around and I never see them again. But
Well,
she was really, really beautiful.
if there is the other photo, if you can send me besides her, and I'll put it into the this video at the end here where we are, is if there's a snapshot of your bookcase that's filled with all these books that you were responsible for, that would
I
make it
have three
nice.
bookcases.
So send me a photo of that because I
I
think that would
will.
look great in the in our YouTube
Yeah,
for people to see how many books in your career that you were responsible for putting out there. So
I
this is the
know.
moment when I ask if there's any words of wisdom or anything you would like to share with our listeners before we sign off today after this wonderful day of stories of the publishing industry and stories of your life.
I think number one, tell everybody you know buy a book. Buy a book. It's the new thing to do. Buy a book. It is the best. And here where I live, there's a group of disparate people who have retired here from, really wealthy people to not. And we've all gotten together in this metaphysical world. And there was one woman who was in her 90s, the same age as my mom, who lived here, and she would gather people together to write their memories. And these ladies none of them had ever thought about writing, and they have written and they have published, and it's changed their lives, all of them. And I think that's what writing does, because it moves you from your inner self out in the world, and it takes you into this whole different way of looking at things, because you think about what are they going to think, and should I put this, I should have not put that, and things like that. So I mean, it's like that story about Richard Belzer. I really would, I mean, now that they're all passed on, but so I would write about it, but before I wouldn't have done that because that was just a funny story. Getting
Yes,
that pot.
very funny story. I'm going to enjoy listening to it again.
So
So
anyway,
wonderful. So we'll have you back again so that you and I can share about Mongolia.
yes.
And that can be a whole separate show. And when this episode comes out, it'll be in January, and I'll be sending you the show so you can do what share it with
I'll
whoever you
send
like.
it around to all my
Right.
friends.
And we went on for, we were together for a bit of time here, but I'm so grateful for our time together.
Me
And
too.
yes, I know it's probably almost dinner time for you now, and for me it's lunch. And I look forward to it. And I want to thank you so much for being here and being a guest on a small, medium, at large podcast. I want to thank all our listeners for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting. And I want to thank my daughter Nancy for posting our show on Spotify, Google, YouTube, and all other social media sites. I want to thank my son for producing the show, and I want to thank my husband for writing the descriptions for me. So it's a little family affair, and I want to thank everyone for helping out. So have a very a wonderful week, and also a happy new year in 2026 when this show is airing. And I hope everyone has a wonderful year ahead as well. Thanks. Have a great
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so much.
And remember, share your stories because stories can heal. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you. I love you. I'll
I
talk to you soon.
love you too.